Do you know where the idea of a wedding ring comes from, or rings in general? Well, this dates back way, way, way back, way to the ancients, right? Where they were actually worshiping Saturn. Saturn was a god in Old Phoenician, and Old Phoenician they called Saturn El, right? It was a god El, and in order to show that you worshiped Saturn, they wanted you to hear the god, right? They wanted you to hear the god. So the women would wear earrings, and that would be a sign that you were worshiping Saturn, the god Saturn, by wearing the earrings. The men would wear rings around their fingers, and that would be the sign that they were worshiping Saturn. Now, because that god was named El, that's where we get a lot of these words from. So if you become a member of the higher club, one of the highest clubs, you become an elite member of society. El, remember that Saturn god El in Old Phoenician. Now when you become an elite member of society, you then become elevated. Okay, elevated, again from that god Saturn. Now they also would wear black robes in worshiping Saturn, and it's interesting because a lot of traditions, we've kept that tradition in church. The priests wear the black robes, judges wear black robes. When you graduate college or graduate high school, you wear a black robe. It's interesting too because you also wear that cap. And do you know what that cap is? That cap is actually a mason board. You know the boards that the Freemasons use, and they put the concrete or the cement or their mix on it, and then they use it and they scrape that stuff off and they use it, the mortar boards. I believe they're called mortar boards too, if I just can't find the word, but I think that's what it is, mortar boards. And that is what they wear on their heads, those mortar boards. And that's a sign, that's a symbol that you have graduated. You graduated your indoctrination program, and now you are ready for the world. You've built a foundation on your indoctrination, which is what that hat signifies. It's because it's a mortar board. You're building that foundation that now you are good to go. And it all ties back with the black robes and the mortar board through masonry, and the Freemasons all worship all that Egyptian stuff, all those Egyptian gods, and all of that old ancient worship. You know, that's what it all is. Now you got even your days a week. So you got Saturday, that comes from Saturn, Saturn Day. It's a Saturnalian event, right? Saturday. Saturn was known as the great inhibitor. It would be somebody that inhibited you from doing something, right? And Saturday is an inhibiting day, if you look at it like that, because what do you do on Saturday? You don't work, you have the day off, you're just chilling, you're not doing anything, right? And they have really got us to really do nothing on Saturday. And for a long periods of time, I mean, there were like Saturdays, people stay home and they watch programming, and it's an inhibitor, the great inhibitor, and that is what Saturn also represents. Now, another thing interesting, Sabbath, the word Sabbath, when people celebrate the Sabbath, that all comes from Saturn as well. Now, in ancient Egyptian, Greek and Egyptian mythology, they worshipped Isis, who was the moon goddess. Now, there was a pharaoh that ended up coming along, and he said, I don't want anyone worshiping this moon goddess Isis anymore. I want us now worshiping the sun god, Amun-Ra. But they thought back then Amun-Ra was the sun god. In order to talk to the god, though, you couldn't talk to God. You had to talk to his son. And his son was Amun. So that's why at the end of their prayers, they would say Amun, because they were trying to speak to Amun-Ra, the sun god. And I know this stuff pisses people off. It gets especially Christians all mad. And in my opinion, do whatever you want, say whatever you want. I'm just saying words have meaning, and You have to understand the words, but also intention. It's all about intention. So if you're, I'm not saying if you're saying amen, you're praying to a mythological God. I'm not saying that. I'm just giving you the meanings of these words, because we use words and we don't know what the words are. That's all. It's that simple. So when you start to know these words, they all have meaning. I'll give you another example of words having meaning. The word church. The word church is an English word that comes from the word kirk, which is a Scottish word. The word kirk comes from an old Roman goddess named Circe. And that old Roman goddess named Circe came from an old Greek goddess named Circe. And what Circe was actually known to do was she would lure people into her house, and by enchanting them with all of this stuff, you know, she would enchant people into her house. Then she would turn them into animals like pigs and just different animals, and she would eat them and she would live off them. And that is where you get the word church from, which is interesting because you know what, I'm gonna leave it there, because this video will get taken down if I get too into this. But that's where the word comes from. So understand where your words come from, understand etymology of words, understand that, you know, there have been religions and there has been all sorts of stuff now for thousands and thousands of years. So for someone to come in later down the road and say, nope, this is the religion that works. Nope, this is the religion. Nope, this is, isn't it crazy? Can't we think that this is crazy? So we have to start to come to an understanding here. And we have to start to learn the truth. And the truth is in words and where these words came from. And again, this is entertainment and satire only. Love you all.